your supplements and functional foods, legal developments, ingredient news, education, inspiration, entertainment, insider in the afternoon.
Oh, I love that theme song. That is my favorite. That's the best theme song this side of like Taxi. Remember that?
People don't even see the little dance party that's happening here during the theme song intro section. So maybe next time we open it up and we invite participation in our dance off.
Right? And special guest today, we will have Steve Myers, who is the everything with the theme song. It's his stuff. I love it, man. And Steve's going to be talking about Supply Side East, and I got my piece of swag from the NBJ Summit. And then we're going to have Shani Charles, the marketing guru, guruette. I'm not sure how that works. Gura. So we're going to have a good marketing show. Now, Ola, you're right up there. Your marketing chops. You've been around the block. Isn't it interesting? Like with supplements, from my world, like I cover a lot of nutrition science news, and you hear a lot about science. Got to have the science, or the lawyers will say you got to be regulatorily compliant. You got that NDI. And then a lot of times it's just who nails the marketing, right? Like that's not unimportant, don't you think?
I like to think it's not unimportant. And I mean, honestly, the challenge for us marketers is that, you got to have the science, you need to have the regulatory stuff. You got to make sure people understand that you're a credible company, but in the end, you're talking to people and you're trying to solve a problem that they have, and they don't always want to hear you blah, 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 blah about like all your cool stuff. They want to know that you are going to solve their problem, or, make them feel great, or make them their best selves, or whatever your thing is. And like, so I've always been known to say, like, if you wouldn't say it, don't say it like that. Like, speak like a normal human. Nobody wants a doctoral dissertation. They want to know you got what they need, and they want to move on. We're all busy. So it's a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, and just in how you meet people kind of where they are with a solution to their problems, right? We've all got problems.
Yeah, I think so. And then, but like you said, it's also sometimes it's just like, wow, that looks cool, or it looks fun, or like that looks yummy, right? Like, how do you get a yummy across? Why are gummy vitamins so big? Because they're yummier, that's why.
They're yummier than a pill. Yeah, that's probably true, right? Yeah. Whatever happened to chewables? Are they still around? Like, Flintstone chewables, that was the thing, when we were kids.
They're still around, but they were the king for a long time until gummies, honestly, like, just legit. Because growing up want gummies and kids want gummies, and everybody, and it was interesting, as I was in Germany a week ago, and there weren't gummy vitamins. I was shocked. I couldn't find them.
Oh,
very interesting. Where they're like the king here, they did not exist, at least not where I was looking in Berlin. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And I'm not quite sure why. Maybe there's something regulatorily, but it was really an interesting difference that I noticed.
Yeah. And so where were you? It's got to be kind of a different world on the other side of the pond, like health food stores or pharmacies, or what's the deal there?
You had to go to pharmacies, so apothecaries. You could buy some very limited measure of things in like a grocery store. And again, I'm not an expert, so there are probably other places that I didn't go, but apothecaries, there's like one on every block. It was a little bit more like when, you and I were growing up, and it wasn't just like the big boys. So there were small apothecaries everywhere. And if you wanted any kind of an over-the-counter medication, you don't just pick it off the shelf and buy it, purchase it from the person. And like potentially have a conversation about whether they're going to sell it to you, which was really interesting. And yeah, vitamins and, stuff like that. That was all in apothecaries, and a very small amount of that was in the grocery stores that we were at. So I was fascinated by that.
So is there a concern that, the rap against gummies is you can only put so much of a functional ingredient into it. And then of course there's a little bit of the sugar concern, but I don't really like, if you have like a gummy that has like 1 or 2 grams of sugar, like big deal. That's my opinion. So I don't really see that, but to me, it's more of the payload. Is that an issue, Or is the marketing message stronger of just like, hey, no pill, it's convenient?
I think it's that balance. Do you know what I mean? There are certain nutrients that are really going to be hard to stuff into a gummy. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Do you know what I mean? And others that are a
Right.
little bit
Like
easier. So I think you gotta, you have to, I mean, we all want it to taste good. So people are compliant, but in the end, you want to put out a good product, right? And so I think there's certain ones you can do it with and certain ones you can't. And then we marketers have to come in and give our little spiel and make it sound fabulous. So, which I know we're going to talk more about marketing later. So I think that'll, I will get Shannon in this conversation a little bit later in this cast today.
That's cool. So one of the best areas where for discovery of new ingredients, new technologies, just new ways that people are selling stuff is at trade shows, and live events are back here in NBJ again. Mm-hmm. Steve Myers is going to be at Supply Side East next week because he's a local boy, done good. Steve, why don't you take it away and give us just a little sneak preview under the camel's tent? Get the camel's nose under the tent. How does that go? Anyway, poot forth, Steve. What's happening at Supply Side East next week? Go.
Well, there will be no camels, sadly. But that just means you won't get spit on. And I think in this climate, that's a good thing. Now, I don't have an MBJ mug, but I do have my favorite Arizona mug, right?
Oh,
Supply Side really originated in Arizona like 25 years ago, I think. So in a way, this is my Supply Side swag. It's a bit
nice.
and not Eastern, but we're going to go with it because I am sitting on the East Coast, so I'm balancing that out. But anyway, yeah, in Natural Products Insider, we're heading to Secaucus, New Jersey next week for Supply Side East. It's back, right? And so we have a couple education programs that I think will interest people attending either in Secaucus proper or on our illustrious Supply Side 365. The first session on Tuesday morning, that's the 24th, bright and early at 9:30, which is not early for those of us with babies, but 9:30 will be a good call before the show floor opens. We have the always favorite top trends. So the top trends in a post-pandemic age, kind of looking at the state of the health and nutrition industry, will be featuring Bill Giebler, the content director at NBJ, and Dan Harari, one of our new partners at Insider, but we've been working with them in different parts of Informa. And Dan is the vice president of business development there, and ClearCut monitors places like Amazon and how supplements are doing there. And they provide a wealth of information. So those two guys are going to walk everybody through the top trends in this, let's call it post-pandemic era.
Any sneak peeks,
yeah,
or do we have to wait? Do we have to wait, or is there any little nugget you can toss out there as enticement?
Yeah.
They didn't give me.
I think we should all go
right.
with.
So I didn't get a mug. I got no mug from MBJ. No nuggets.
Got to go to the show, people.
I'm thinking. I didn't. When I was in college, I didn't put on the freshman 15, but I did put on the COVID-19, or maybe the COVID-9. I'm thinking the time is ripe for weight management ingredients. I think prebiotics are going to prosper from this. We never really did find an ephedra substitute, did we? I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Steve?
The energy area is a hot area, but I mean, ephedra was
Energy is hot. That's true.
itself. But we come out of last year was saw immunity being big, sleep and stress, they were big. And the guys will take a look at what's going on with herbs and botanicals, probiotics and things of this nature. But the other interesting aspect of this session is part of it's in person and part of it is online. So be in the room giving his presentation. Dan's presentation was recorded, but while Dan's presentation, actually throughout the whole session, Dan will be on 365 chatting away with everybody attending there and fielding questions, answering questions. And I'll be in the room moderating the whole session, and I'll be in person, but I'll be monitoring online in case something cool happens online I want to tell people about in the room. So we're really going to try to connect these two worlds of in the room and on 360.
Wow.
So this is a new.
You're like a hybrid.
Pretty fun.
Yeah. That's going to
Yeah.
be cool. I actually love that. I think it's great because, there are always people who don't make it to a show for any reason, forget the pandemic stuff, like just so to be able to bring them into the conversation, I think that's great. I'm excited to see how that goes.
And then
Right?
quickly, the
Yeah.
following day, in the same time slot on Wednesday, the 25th, we're going to have a session on diversity, equity, and inclusion, lessons learned from that elephant in the room, right? So many companies are tuning in or should be tuning in to these topics. And we have some great guests that are our own Sandy Almendarez will help moderate, but we have Ladora Brown, who's the senior PR manager at Blue Grace Logistics, and Amy Summers she's the president of Pitch Publicity. So they'll be going through that wonderful topic the following day. And so we have each day starting off with some great education, and I will be around the show floor. Please, anybody attending, come talk to me about supply chain issues, for instance, and maybe, just maybe, I'll get you on a video and you can be on Todd's show. No promises.
Yeah. Hey, if it's good enough for Steve, it's good enough for me. That's what I say. And so cool. We're gonna see everyone there in Jersey next week. That's super cool. Hey, let's tune into. We have a special guest, Luke Huber. He's an ND and he's with CRN, Council for Responsible Nutrition, and he's gonna give us a little dive into our Viva la Vitamins segment on talk about pandemic supplements. I mean, vitamin D has got to be right at the top of the list. So, Luke, take it away.
Thank you, Todd, and hello, everyone. I'm here from CRN and happy to speak to you today about vitamin D. So a little bit of the history on vitamin D. It was Sir Edward Mellanby of Great Britain who first became concerned with the extremely high occurrence of rickets in the UK, particularly in Scotland. Mellanby suspected that rickets may have been a dietary deficiency disease and started to perform experiments with dogs by feeding them a typical diet consumed by Scottish people. He eventually discovered that he could cure the rickets in the dogs who had contracted the disease by providing them with cod liver oil. While Mellanby initially thought this was a deficiency of vitamin A, it was Professor Elmer McCullum of Johns Hopkins University who correctly concluded that the factor that cures rickets was a new nutrient at that time, which they called vitamin D. So vitamin D is an essential fat-soluble vitamin. It's metabolized in the body to calcitriol, the active metabolite. Vitamin D is made in the skin during exposure to sunlight. It's also found in dietary sources such as fish, eggs, and fortified milk. In the US, foods containing at least 120 international units of vitamin D are allowed to state the following. Adequate calcium and vitamin D as part of a well-balanced diet, along with physical activity, may reduce the risk of osteoporosis. Dietary supplements can contain vitamin D3 or vitamin D2. Vitamin D is commonly found in most multivitamins, but it's also a popular standalone supplement product. And according to the 2020 CRN Consumer Survey on dietary supplements, 42% of total supplement users reported taking vitamin D supplements. Vitamin D is the second most popular ingredient among supplement users aged 35 and older. The use of this nutrient has increased by 10 percentage points compared to 2015. The FDA requires that supplement labels list vitamin D content in micrograms. The recommended daily daily allowance for vitamin D based on age is as follows. 15 micrograms or 600 IUs for those 1 to 70 years of age, 800 IU or 20 micrograms for those 71 years of age and older, and for pregnant and lactating women, it's 600 IUs or 15 micrograms daily. The National Osteoporosis Foundation recommends vitamin D levels of 400 to 800 IU or 10 to 20 micrograms daily for adults under the age of 50, and 800 to 1,000 IU or 20 to 25 micrograms for older adults. There are several benefits for vitamin D. Vitamin D promotes calcium absorption in the gut and maintains adequate serum calcium and phosphate concentrations to enable normal bone mineralization. Vitamin D is also needed for bone growth and bone remodeling. Vitamin D sufficiency prevents rickets in children and osteomalacia in adults. Along with calcium, vitamin D also helps to protect older adults from osteoporosis. Vitamin D has other roles in the body, including modulating inflammation, cell growth, neuromuscular processes, immune function, and glucose metabolism. Over the past year, we've seen a growing amount of research being conducted on the potential relationship between vitamin D and COVID-19. CRN has been watching this research closely and recently launched a consumer education website entitled vitamindme.org that provides detailed information, research, and interviews on this critical nutrient and its relationship to COVID-19. Most people in the United States consume less than the recommended amount of vitamin D. The 2020 to 2025 dietary guidelines for Americans note that underconsumption of vitamin D, amongst other nutrients, is linked to health concerns. The guidelines highlight that recommendations for vitamin D in particular may be more difficult for individuals to achieve through sunlight and diet alone, highlighting that vitamin D supplementation may be important. The guidelines also reinforce the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendation that infants fed human milk should receive a daily supplement with 400 IU of vitamin D beginning soon after birth. Groups at risk of vitamin D inadequacy include breastfed infants, older adults, people with limited sun exposure, and people with darker skin. Vitamin D safety has been clear in a wide range of doses. The tolerable upper intake levels, or ULs, vary across life stages and differ between men and women, and change for women who are pregnant or lactating, as you can see on the slide here. Consumers taking medications on a regular basis should discuss their intake of vitamin D with their healthcare practitioner, and some interactions are possible. Consumers should also talk to their healthcare practitioner about whether they may benefit from a blood test to detect a vitamin D deficiency or other possible nutrient shortfall. I'd like to thank you for your time today. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about vitamin D or any other dietary supplement. And back to you, Todd.
All right, we are back. It's happening here. That was good. I hope everyone learned just a little bit more about vitamin D, that the sunshine vitamin might be the most important supplement here in COVID times. Hey, let's get back into the marketing bandwagon because that's so much fun. And we have a special guest with us today, Shani Charles. Now she is, like the head marketing. She's the chief bitch and Charles there at Nature Aid. She's the one. And Shani, welcome to the show. How the heck are you?
Thank you. I'm great. So nice to be here with you and Charlie and Ola and Steve. This is great. I'm so excited to be here on behalf of Nature Aid. So thank you.
We're happy to have you.
Yeah.
And, I want to point out that this is something I was thinking about earlier. Now, when first we met, actually, you had just gotten off of, you were with Yummy Bears, Hero Nutritionals, like the original gummy Yummy Bears, right?
Yeah.
And then,
That's right.
So obviously the market maker, the leader in gummies, which as we just talked about are like blowing up. And then you went to NeoCell, which was, the category leader in collagen. And then, from there, that got sold to Nutranext, to Clorox. Now you're with Nature Aid, this venerable brand. And so the thought that I was having is like, okay, Shani, she keeps going from like the number one category leader to the number one category, and it's like, like, what's that about? And then I thought, well, actually, maybe it's not that you just keep going from number one to number one, but you keep making number one.
Wow.
Number one. How does that
She's the number
Right.
one that happens. Yes. Yeah.
That's so nice of you guys. Oh, that's so sweet. I haven't really
Right?
thought about it that way, but that's so nice of you to say that. Aw.
right? I mean, I know if I was a company with some capital behind me and I was looking for the marketing genius, I would go for the number one. Just saying.
Too nice. Too nice. I haven't paid
yeah.
you just yet, Todd. Just kidding. That's really
Oh,
sweet
you're
of
paying
you
all of
guys.
us with
Yeah,
the presents.
I mean, I think I follow just naturally who I am. Maybe, I mean, I wouldn't say fads, but definitely trends, since I was a young kid. And I really love our industry and I love following where it's going. And I am a data nerd at the end of the day. So when I see that, I want to be a part of it and understand it fully. And the only way I think, and Ola, I'm sure you can maybe chime in here, like the way to really understand that is to become a marketer leading those brands. That's how you learn about everything that's going on in our space. In my opinion, much more so than some other roles that you could take in a company. So I think being a marketer, it's so interesting and fun in that sense that we're shaping the industry, following it and fully understanding it. And I think that's the fun part for me. So thank you for saying that. But really, it's it's our industry is amazing. So I'm just so happy to be a part of the winning teams at the right times. Call it luck. I should go play poker after this, maybe.
Shani, I would love to talk to you because you kind of mentioned that you're a data nerd. And I think that,
Mhm.
marketing, as you know, has changed considerably in the last 15 years, 20 years,
Mhm.
10, and more so even closer up. Talk a little bit about that, that piece of like how data fits into marketing. Because I think, it used to be marketing was sort of this, was a little bit more on the creative side and it was more telling
Yeah.
people what you wanted to tell them about your brand.
Yeah.
And now it's more about listening and understanding, and the data plays such an important role in that. Like, how do you work that in? How do you like it? How do you use it? Like, give some advice
Yeah.
to other folks out there that are trying to do this job.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would honestly say that in my hero days, I was the biggest data nerd. Maybe it was because I was a little less tenured. That was 10 years ago. I've known Todd. But also just you have to intuitively move more. But using data, obviously in E-Trade, we're using our social data, we're using our website data, we're reading trends produced by, as we were at MBJ last week, right? And I would say that how we're using data, or how I do personally, is, what we were talking about earlier, Ola, like the data is the data, but then you have to intuitively know how to apply that and how to talk to the person, as a human being applying the data. So to answer your question, we see that consumers like myself, 35, 22, yoga moms buying the product. What are we doing? How are we acting? What else are we buying? What else is in our cart? What's our cart average? What's our cart on a payday? Applying that and then talking to that mom as we would speak to each other as friends, saying like, hey, you need to get this because weight loss is in the forefront of our minds as a mom in COVID. We know that from the data, but here's how we're going to serve you, because it's also hot right now to be taking a vegan shake and losing weight at the same time. So it's like that intuitiveness and data where it crosses. But I feel like today's market, you have to be more intuitive as a marketer than data driven, unfortunately, because it's become harder for us. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's become harder. And like we were talking, ticking boxes, right? You have to be in calls. You have to get social media done, PR done, trade done. And then you're like, how do I pull myself out of it? I'd say the best way as a marketer today is to pull yourself out, to think about it and talk to each other as humans, and then apply that thinking.
Yeah.
If that
Yeah.
makes
I
sense.
think, not just marketing, but in a lot of places, it's harder to have that white space. And we talked a little bit about this off
Right.
camera, but that white space of just all the distractions gone, knowing that your phone's not going to chirp at you, nobody's going to call you, you don't have a meeting coming up in an hour. You can't kind of get into that creative thinking space when you have something coming right after you. And I think that's one of the challenges of marketing right now. And whether it's supplements or, any other industry, I think this is a tricky thing, and but not losing that humanity, as you said. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to just, I'd love to hear some of your like interesting challenges that you've had, or just kind of what you've experienced and what you see for the industry going forward. I think that would be kind of neat to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, well, great question too. I would say if I apply that right now to Nature-Aid in particular, we really serve everybody. Like we serve, like I said, me, the yoga mom, 3 kids, running everywhere, trying to, do what we do, the busy life, marketing, sales. But then we also have this, urban feel and our real mission of serving the audience that needs to be served the most, that no one was speaking to before we did, right? And how do you touch that audience, right? So I would say that something that I've really leaned on too, just being totally blunt, is Kareem Cook. I mean, he's an amazing CMO. He is the most intuitive man I've ever met, in marketing. And we kind of like balance each other as opposites in like just our life, right? And we're just obviously such great family friends in Nature-Aid. We're all family. We love each other. But like just, balancing, okay, here's the data. Here's my view, which is so different to his. Here's your view. And then here's how we're going to serve every single piece of that. So what I would say is, what I've learned as a marketer, to land the plane to answer your question, is we look at 5 different subsets now, right? It's not just that yoga mom we were serving the supplement space before. It's the yoga mom. It's someone that doesn't have a supplement, purchasing option within a 10-mile radius of their home. How do we handle that? How do we handle someone that wants to walk into a Walmart and buy our product? How do we handle someone that doesn't know who the heck we are, and now we're on the shelf at Target, right? Competing with the big boys. How do we handle, going into Costco as the first company, as we did, and great history behind that competition. But, it's looking at it as like 5 different marketing business plans at once. So you can understand why I don't sleep a lot.
Yeah. Todd, I know you see some cool stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
in your
Yeah,
role.
well, no, I think it's interesting that there's lots of different ways that companies can market their products. I was in Target recently, and there's Ollie, which is like everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And then another recent brand that like Ollie has kind of come out of nowhere is Goldie.
Mhm. Right.
And it seems to me that they're definitely winning because of their marketing, but it feels like they're going after it in different ways. Shani, what do you know about that?
Yeah. So just from the gummy world, from Yummy Bears and Slice of Life at Hero Nutritionals, obviously we always talk about taste is king, right? Taste is king. Having enough nutrients obviously is also king. But what I would say is that number one, in my opinion, with Ollie, they were spot on with their packaging. They launched primarily with Target. They had packaging that fit perfectly on that shelf, right? So it was a winning combination. Really smart as marketers, anyone listening, look at your retailer and make the packaging first structurally fit to that shelf or pallet, whatever. It's number one. You have to look at it from an operational standpoint. It literally won't work if you pull out a case pack and one falls through. Okay. You've got to do that first.
That
And
seems
then-
to be kind of new. Like I remember a few years ago at one of the expos, I saw Twin Lab where they had like the square bottles and not just the round ones. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it's like, yeah, boy, that makes sense. And now you see a lot of companies, like there's the U Theory out there and that are just like, oh yeah, why don't we make this plastic into a square? And then that just stacks better and it's easier.
Right.
Fills
Well,
up more space.
it started first, Todd, as an answer to the space deficit, right? Then it became popular because of Ollie, in my opinion, right? It became popular because it did work. And then people started to associate good brands and marketing with that shape. So that's how that, intuitively moved. And it started with Target back in the day. And then with Ollie, that's a different approach, right? So Ollie, in my opinion, as a marketer, they were good timing, good luck, preparation and luck hit, right? Apple cider vinegar was hot, delivery form hot, right? And they were able to use big influencers and big marketing to drive that nail home, right? So, I mean, I think that Ollie and Goalie have different situations going on. I think that Ollie really hit the nail on the head in innovating and packaging and a solution. Because, I mean, I had just left Hero when I heard about Ollie. And I was like, they're so smart. Like that was the right move. And same with Goalie. Preparation, luck. Apple cider vinegar, hot. Gummies, hot. Ready to go. Kim Kardashian type, influencers that they had access to, which, unfortunately, sometimes you don't have access to, but it makes us better marketers. And I'm sure you can talk to that as well.
Yeah. I always say, you got to be scrappy, so.
Yes.
Scrappy goes a long way, I think. And it's good to have, it's nice to have the money, right? It's nice to have the
Right.
ability to do some bigger things, but scrappy is important,
Makes you better.
I mean, in marketing and in life, I think, when you've learned to, I would say the best thing that ever happened to me in my career is I started working in nonprofits where there's no money and you do 7 jobs. And so you learn a lot about a lot of things and you learn how to be scrappy. And I think that has served me well through the years as I've, no longer in nonprofits, but, scrappy counts. So, makes you be a little more creative sometimes. I think you're right.
I mean, I never knew you were a scrapper, but I respect you even more now. Yeah.
We're gonna
No,
go have
for
some
sure.
scrappy fun sometime once we get a chance to see each
Yeah.
other.
You gotta do the Shanny hustle, right?
I love it. The scrappy marketing trumps crappy marketing 10 songs in a row. And so that's, I'm afraid, all we have time for on this week's show, but I'm really glad that we got to dig in a little bit on the marketing side of the world, because, you know, when you hear all these things like, oh, you got to have the science, and it's like, sure, maybe, but it always helps if you can nail the marketing. And that's the story this week at Insider in the Afternoon. Thanks for joining us. And actually, we won't see you next week because we're going to be at Splash East, but we'll see you September 1st. Catch you later.
I'll see you all there. God bless.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Yep. Bye.
Sustainable